Are we recording?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, my name is Vijay, and I am here with a few friends to work on a project I did that we'll share in a little bit.
I'm Arthur, and actually I'm very new to having met Vijay and this project, but I'm excited about possibilities.
I'm Matthew. I'm a friend of VJ's and also excited that we got a chance to work on it stuff yesterday. It was a lot of energy.
Like 10 hours.
Yeah. It was like, oh, hey, come on over and hang out for a little bit. And all of a sudden it was like 10 hours of excited work.
Hi, my name is Alex, friend of VJ's, also her old roommate. Pretty excited to help out on this project.
Thanks. So before this video started, I just want to be honest. There was a bit of a conversation about what we wanted to share on live, whatever, and what was really difficult is that this project idea is the reason we're all in this room. This is the reason that Alex and I are talking after years. This is the reason I've been working for 10 hours with Art, who I met yesterday, and Matt got commandeered into it too, because they willingly and they wanted to be a part of this. Since Tuesday, there's been a lot of fear around the country, and people that I know personally whose parents have been harassed. So all kinds of experiences that are showing up in my social media. So I feel very fortunate I'm in San Francisco. I'm not encountering it to that degree right now, but I'm recognizing that there are a lot of people, some who look like me, some who look like other people, and they're not safe. They don't feel safe. They're not actually safe sometimes. And most of the time, everyone is just talking about how scared they are. And I just didn't feel like I could just keep reading that and not do something. And now I shared this idea on social media about what we could do to maybe, as a first step, bring people together to see what's really happening around the country through a online map. And then I had this vision of, wouldn't it be amazing if someone could, raise their hand and get an escort walking them home at night from their, job. And so people around the country being able to step forward and walk with them home, because I know, however the results of the election went, most everyone in this country is not okay with what's happening, and we're not really sure what to do next. So I feel really privileged that I have people here that want to do this together. And so let's just dive into what this project idea is and get started. So the project idea is essentially, I didn't want this to look like a map of here are all the terrible things are happening around the country and leave it there. There was so much more here that we could do. And so what could we do to transform fear into positive action? What can we do to strengthen community relationships? What can we do to strengthen or even build those connections where maybe they're not built right now? And so in thinking about that, we wanted to engage people to not just look at a map of what's happening, but to be a part of it, to be present on it, to be represented on this map visually, so that you can see us, folks like us who don't stand for this, who want to be a part of the solution, who want to be protectors, who want to at least have our presence felt as much as the folks that are out there, harassing people, who make people feel less welcome in this country. I think there are way more people out there who are willing to say, nope, that's not on my watch. That's not what I'm okay with. Whether that's me walking down the street or Art, there are ways to engage that are safe, that are very positive, that share a story about what this country is really about. And so this is that effort. And so how we're going to do that, I'm going to let Art kind of talk about that big picture design.
Yeah, so the trick is that it's easy to make visible the bad things happening, right? We can actually we can make data feeds from police reports or Twitter or things like that of bad incidents that happen, watching for certain hashtags, hate crimes, different things like that. It's not so easy to see the positive, to make visible somebody saying, not on my watch, I'm standing for holding a safe space. How do we make that actually visible? And even better, how do we engage people in a game of amplifying that such that it pushes out and it doesn't make room for the hate crimes and because we actually have people standing for not on my watch, right? Like, and so what we started looking at was making a whole game, like making this stuff visible on a map, but instead of focusing on the hate crimes, actually be looking at painting a map with light. Where are people stepping forward and saying, I'm watching this, I'm a sentinel that's on watch, and not making room for that stuff to happen around me. And that's going to also probably require some resources to support those people in, like, what do you do when you confront an unpleasant situation? You know, it's not about being a vigilante and rushing in with, you know, guns or clubs or something like that. It's actually about weaving the social fabric that just doesn't make room for that kind of thing. Because these kinds of actions happen from dehumanization, really, right? Like that this person isn't a person, so it's okay for me to, you know, vent hate or whatever on them. And so it's really about reweaving the humanity and the social connection. And so we want to actually make it possible for people to declare themselves a watcher, a sentinel, that is, and have some resources for those people about how to diffuse situations and that kind of stuff. And then have an app on the phone that, like, when you sign in as a watcher, when you say I'm on watch, it sends little location data to the server, and we can start painting a map with light about these are the areas that are being watched. And the game is to cover the map. But it's not quite that easy because the light fades. And over time, as we get, you know, more people or whatever, the decay rate may be faster. But also in areas, we can still pull the hate crime data and have kind of a heat map of where these kinds of things are happening. And in those areas, it fades faster. We need more people watching more. And so this is the beginning of a game of actually painting the map with safety, with light.
What do we call it?
Shine a light.
Shine a light.
Shine a light for now.
Working title?
Working title.
Working title.
I do like Shine a Light for the reason that people are engaging and they're painting through their movement around their space a light. And that it indicates just the way that when people walk at night, it feels safer to walk down a street light with a lot of street lights, and you feel like you're able to get home. I feel like more unsafe when there's lights not working. So I like that concept.
And there's the flip side too, which is not just the I feel safe because the space is being watched. Is that I feel more connected with the community when I'm declaring myself to be a watcher. When I'm self-identifying as I'm a member of this community. I'm a steward. I'm a sentinel. And so that's an enlightening activity intrapersonally. I don't know, like internally,
Yeah.
as well, on a personal level for those folks. It's not just for the others. Right?
So let's talk about what this is actually going to involve. What kinds of things we're going to need when we're doing that. Alex, do you want to jump in at all here? I know you can't see the piece of paper where we wrote some notes on, but.
Sure. So I think the biggest thing for kind of supplying the information that this game is going to require is really hammering down the different data sources and where we're going to pull stuff from. I know there was mention of obviously phone users giving their location data to kind of feed that kind of data roughly in a non-invasive way, meaning, you know, not super accurate, but within an area. So there's that aspect. There's also the aspect of working with Twitter. They have an API that's available to get different hashtags and all that stuff to kind of dictate how fast an area will fade with light. And then there's the aspect of how to support taking in all that data, because that's going to be a substantial amount of data. So there's a cost issue as well as a volume issue as well. So there's kind of like an architectural design that needs to happen where we minimize cost because we are a grassroots kind of thing that doesn't have massive donations yet, while also making sure that it's still usable. So I think if we can, is it possible to get donations and stuff for like AWS instances to support this kind of program? Because I do know that keeping this service up is going to cost money, unfortunately. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing to consider too is, I think that the time to delivery, in terms of what we want to provide on day one, and how fast we want to actually provide that. For example, it would be super quick, I think, to provide just a very quick like phone application that doesn't use the crime information, just the actual times of when people signed on to be watchers of an area, and have that be for now just set on a base rate of decay of that light, so you don't have to worry about ingesting all of this Twitter data and all of this other stuff. So that could be something that could be set up almost pretty much immediately for people to have access to. And once we get that user base, then we can start incorporating those more advanced features with data. I think that's probably the best way to go in terms of minimal product that we can get out super quickly without, and that'll cut down costs too initially as well. Because then we're not really worrying about storing, all of this crime data and analyzing it and all this stuff. And that would minimize our architecture costs as well, because we don't have to build any of that stuff yet. So I think really focusing in on the users who are using it to monitor an area is the perfect kind of minimal product. That being said, we're going to probably need 2 different phone applications, an Android application and an iPhone application. Just knowing from market data, iPhone users are far more likely to download apps than Android users are. It's just a fact. I don't know why it is. It just happens. So I think iPhone app would probably be priority number 1, and having a web app as well, just like a standard web page, would also be very nice to be able for users to sign in and see, their areas of, hey, is my area covered? Let me check on my computer. Oh, I can, while I'm at work, I can sign on just to, make sure that people feel safe. So I think those are kind of my first initial like gut reactions to that, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. So I think we actually might even be able to start with a website where we collect some resources for Sentinels of how to, diffuse situations that you run into, how to interact, potentially also how to call in other support. Like, it isn't about necessarily you have to intervene directly, although some ways of being able to intervene that aren't confrontative,
right,
I think are useful. So there's other people that have been collecting that kind of information, and we can either link out to that stuff, or iframe in, or Creative Commons reshare, or whatever, right? Like make some of those resources available. And I think you're totally right about it. Right, we focus on collecting our watch data first, but to kind of be responsible, if we're saying this area is watched, I think we're going to end up going to.
We have to do something with it. They're watching it, but what if the scenario is when something does happen under that watched area, what happens?
So, like, if there's an area that seems more unsafe than other areas, right, then we kind of need to decay that faster for it to
Absolutely.
Right? We're kind of making a false promise to people, a false assurance, not exactly a promise, but assurance to people. And that's where figuring out how to pull in that, hate crime data or other incident data that are like tiers in the social fabric. I think it just can be really powerful to have the web page you're talking about show the map. You can zoom in to your areas and that kind of stuff, but it also shows the count of how many Sentinels there are and how many are active right now that are signed on to watch right now, and not necessarily in your area, although potentially you could constrain that to an area. And we can think through that. But again, this is where things are going to be fuzzy a little. We don't want to pinpoint people, and there's not going to be identity information
Right.
level.
Yeah. And I think that presenting how a user engages, not just like what they do when they get logged in, but how that they play that role and what we're thinking through about protecting their location, protecting their identity, because we're not here to kind of like pull people up and say like, oh, look, like John Doe is just an amazing set. I mean, that could happen down the road, but I think this is a very new idea. I don't think that this is something people are used to thinking about. I think privately in their own communities, there might be folks that are already doing this, and we're trying to bring something to scale that engages people to feel like they can do this and make it as easy as possible for people who already want to participate. And I think that having that website while this phone app is getting up and ready to present that story and tell that message in a way that gives all these empowering like tools. And we have a group of people also that are not on this call right now that are ready to dive into that and start building that out. So I think we can have both of these things happening simultaneously, especially because now we've gotten to the point of seeing like what this could really look like in terms of those key components.
Cool.
I want to mention that we are already envisioning future stages of way things can go. Like once you have some kind of critical mass of sentinels in an area, that you could do sort of matchmaking kind of things when somebody who may not feel safe in an area knows they're getting off work late, they could potentially request somebody to walk with them or to, that kind of thing. So we see down the road some ways that we can add bonus services, features, like make this a little bit richer. So we kind of like have to start by establishing a baseline involvement and engagement. And I think one of the other things that becomes interesting at that point is some of the identity stuff, the kind of social network stuff where, you could do a little bit of social network triangulation, like if somebody logs in with Facebook Connect kind of thing, that I could see that this person who is available to walk me home has a friend in common with me. That becomes a social trust connection. Or I could see that their identity has been validated. And back to your point about some sustaining funds for this, one of the ways we could validate identity is just a credit card transaction. This person's name is X, the name on their credit card that we processed, so we've validated at least a financial relationship with that person. And the other types of things, we're even looking at supporting relationships with local
community organizations or neighborhood associations, places that already have the infrastructure from a community perspective, where people are already connecting with these places. I think it would be awesome if we brought this to a certain level of engagement where in neighborhoods and communities, they can run with it in their own way. It's not meant to be, we need to adopt this particular approach and we need to use this, that. And the idea is that if it flourishes and you at your community have these different safe spaces and you have people that are engaged in those areas, that those communities can also kind of.
So maybe the application could kind of poll based on their location. You could find resources within that area that could help with this task.
Yeah, and you also have the other side, which is, hey, I found a few sentinels that are on duty, but we were thinking through what are the ways in which you can make it easier for that sentinel, but that person who's asking for a walk home, to feel safe that this sentinel is going to actually be somebody who will help them rather than hurt them. So it was how do you decrease the amount of risk that this person is taking
by using the application in itself.
That's right. And so there's the Facebook connection in common could be a thing where you're like, well, there's 3 sentinels on duty, but this one has 2 of my friends, and so I'm going to go with that one. Or this one has been sort of given a little stamp of approval by good neighbors
association, local group.
Yeah, a local association or previous people that they've walked home, right? So there's these ways in which
with that 48 thank yous from other people that walked or something.
Yeah. And so we were sort of playing with these. Okay, how can you enable those types of statement making or communications? And we were playing around a little bit with, can we do that in ways that are not overly constrained? not overly simple, so that there's room for these communities to actually start creating cultures and practices of their own that have meaning for them, that just start to emerge out of the usage of the system rather than out of our architecting, because we're so brilliant and wise. So it was kind of how do you leave the room there? And so we started playing with that, but that's all down the line stuff, right? It's like, hey, let's do this stuff first, and then maybe we can start to build things on top of that, and then we can start to build things on top of that,
So
sorry.
very core number one feature.
Yes, that's my next point.
What is if you had to put aside everything else, what is the number one thing you would want today?
I think getting this story out and having it be an easy access point to engage. And I think that it might be the phone app, but I think that people need to go to a story first on the website.
Absolutely, I agree.
That is the landing page from which people can move into other spaces. I think there's a lot of potential for this outreach to happen very quickly, but telling that first story is huge. So getting that live.
And then what's our second step? What's the thing that we build?
Call to action from the website saying download this phone app. That's my opinion.
But what's the thing that the app does?
So the app would do what Alex described. It would allow you to log in as a sentinel or whatever that language you want to use and say, I am painting my neighborhood with white today. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. Even if we started off with just sign in, timestamp and location, sign out, timestamp and location.
And there's no GPS support.
Well, location is GPS.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to create manual data entry when you don't need it.
Nobody likes that.
Yeah. Then that's the beginning. And then being able to send the ticks as you have, somebody in transit or whatever, that's the pulse. That's like keeping a pulse on the community that we want to move to.
So I think that's where we land.
So the first feature in terms of the app is enabling people to declare that they are a sentinel and enabling them to share where they're going to be. Yeah,
So first things first, sign up. Being able to sign up.
Yes.
Second thing would be being able to log in after you sign up. Third thing would be being able to set yourself as a sentinel, which sends pings to our server with their location data.
Yeah.
Fourth thing would be mapping that location data to show some sort of light. Those are like the four critical things that I'm taking back from our discussion right now. But first things first, even before that, I really do think the landing page, which Vijay described, which tells people why we're doing this, even if we don't even have the application out yet, it will get excitement.
Put up this video.
Yeah, this video, a landing page that's pretty and has a tell me when this is available, like an email sign up, one of those kind of to generate buzz and excitement, things that you can share to your friends and community, which explain kind of the purpose of this. I think is very important. We'll even probably be able to get people to fund and or help as well when they see it.
Yeah.
So.
What do you guys think of chunking out this video a little bit so that there are clips?
Absolutely.
Other than the direct community that's engaged in building this out today and sprinting on this, it'll be great to see snapshots of this is where we're talking about the product or the inspiration, the team, the whatever.
Plus, there's a couple tracks. The 1, 2, 3, 4 that you just said. That's from the back-end developer side.
Yeah, development side.
Also, the storytelling,
piece, the
communication side, which is probably a different group of people, and maybe
Absolutely.
production side. Might be nicer not to just edit this video, but to make
An actual story.
better ones that
Yeah. Right. Everything has come together in the past literally 48 hours. The ask went up on Friday at 12 p.m. and it's Saturday at 12 p.m.
Right? It's been 12 hours.
8 hours. And we have 25 people and new friends and people I still haven't met who are meeting in half an hour who would be on the more of the storytelling, creative communication side of it. And I don't even know half their talent pool. I think we've got a very deep talent pool, and I'm barely getting to scratch the surface of who's engaged. So there's a lot
Woohoo.
that can come from this. Yeah.
Right? It's awesome. I've never seen a project explode so quickly, to be quite honest. It's awesome.
Yay. Everyone on this team is spectacular. But yeah, thank you guys so much.
Of course.
The reason everything's coming together is because all of you did it. You want to be part of it.
And we're looking forward to having all of you be a part of it too. Come help us build this stuff and come help us shine a light.